Oh, it's Friday. You know what that means. It's Friday Night Draft right here on Locked On NFL Draft. Let's go.
Let's go.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, sir. Welcome in. It's Locked On NFL Draft coming at you. You got former NFL defensive back Eric Crocker. He's a champion right there. Ryan Tracy at Rogue Analytics at Ryan Tracy NFL. You see him right there. Hang 10, Ryan. And I'm John Harris, football analyst, sideline reporter for the Houston Texans, also owner-operator of footballtakeover.com. Doing a lot of draft stuff, and that obviously is what we do here on Locked On NFL Draft. And tonight's draft, or today's draft, depending on when you're listening, I like Friday night because that just reminds you of Friday Night Lights. We are redrafting the 2018 NFL Draft. Now, we're not going to do the whole thing, obviously all 256 picks. A little smaller. But we're going to try and get through the top 15 in this draft and redraft it. Now, no rules. No rules. As long as a guy was drafted in the 2018 draft and you think that player fits, boom, done, away we go. So let's kick off this draft with the Cleveland Browns on the clock, which means general manager Eric Crocker steps to the podium and the Cleveland Browns select Eric Crocker. The floor is yours.
This one was a little tougher than I thought. You know, you think of some of the quarterbacks that are in this class and you're like, oh, Josh Allen. But, man, I'm thinking about Lamar Jackson. And some of the moves that the Cleveland Browns made going out and, they got Chubb in this draft class. They also went out eventually and got guys like Jarvis Landry, Odell Beckham. And I started thinking about, gosh, Chubb, Odell, Landry, Lamar Jackson. What would that look like? But I'm not going to make this harder than it has to be. I'm going Josh Allen with the number 1 overall pick.
Okay. That's, I think, a consensus. I would have gone with Josh Allen with the Cleveland Browns. His 85-mile-an-hour fastball, or his 105-mile-an-hour fastball would cut through that wind. There's no doubt about that. Okay. Before we go any further, I need to remind you today's show is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. Helps you find a candidate you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. So we found one job for Josh Allen. Now, Ryan Tracy, you have the New York Football Giants, a team I will see on Sunday. They drafted Saquon Barkley. Baker Mayfield is now available to you if you'd like that, if you'd like him. But what will you do? GM Ryan Tracy strides to the podium to select for the New York Giants, and he selects?
I am not convinced that I need to rethink this too hard because I don't know that in the Big Apple that I really think that Baker Mayfield survives. I'm not sure Lamar Jackson turns into the player he is today if he goes to the New York Giants. So I'm not even going to do that. I'm going to leave that for you, John.
Wow.
I'm going to give you the break because what I would do, given the front office's evaluation, and they chose to go at running back. They just chose the wrong one because Derrick Henry and I agree on one thing. Nick Chubb is the best running back in this league. I'll put him there because it seems to fit with the direction they were going.
Wow. That is an absolute curveball, but I love it. I absolutely love it. Nick Chubb with Daniel Jones. Ooh, man, that would be all kinds of dicey. Well, you just made my pick with the New York Jets very interesting because I was convinced that Josh Allen and Nick Chubb or Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson were going 1 and 2. So I had the Jets doing something very unsexy, but now I can go very sexy. Because the New York Jets will sprint to the podium. Now, you bring up a great point. Will Lamar Jackson have thrived with the Jets? Well, the Jets have done what the Ravens did, and that was get Greg Roman, who had run the Colin Kaepernick, offense in San Francisco, or tailored it around Colin Kaepernick is what I should say. And then he does it again in Baltimore. Could they have gotten somebody like Greg Roman? Would they have gotten Greg Roman for the New York Jets to be able to run this? That's where Lamar has thrived. The Bears are figuring it out for Justin Fields. I'm not going to think too hard about this. I'm going to go New York Jets with Lamar Jackson, and I'm going to send you a thank you card after he wins the 2019 MVP and gets the Jets to the playoffs, Ryan Tracy. So there we go. All right, snakes back to me. And now, wow, now it gets really interesting because I've got the player I was going to go at 3 I don't think I should have going to the Browns. Now, the Browns took Denzel Ward. And I'm kind of a mindset like Ryan. I think that the Browns took the right position, but maybe not the best player at that position. They end up taking Denzel Ward, who's been a good player, been a Pro Bowler. I think he's got a really bright future. But I do not think that he is better than Jair Alexander. So I'm going to take, with pick number 4, the Cleveland Browns select Jair Alexander instead of Denzel Ward, which puts Denzel Ward on the clock. And now I got to reset my board because now I've got somebody falling, and that might be available to me later on. All right, Ryan, you are picking 5. It's the Denver Broncos.
This is a tough one because we just saw Chubb get traded and get a huge contract, right? So
yes,
around the league, he's respected enough that he got this second bite at the apple. But I can't help but go back and think, if there's a once in a 5-year span prospect that could help what the Denver Broncos were in 2018, that could have helped them reboot and retool, I think it might have been Quentin Nelson. Going one spot higher than he actually did go to the Colts, put him in Denver. Russ isn't there. There's a whole different thing, and the history's been quite dramatically changed, in my opinion. So give him Quentin Nelson.
Quentin Nelson comes off the board. If you had gone with Lamar Jackson at 2, I was drafting Quentin Nelson to the Jets. AVT has been banged up, but Nelson would have been in there with AVT healthy, Mekhi Becton at left tackle when he's healthy, and now you're talking about offensive line that's going to move some people and do some damage. But Quentin Nelson goes to the Denver Broncos, which takes us to the actual pick 6. Now, if you remember back to this draft, the Indianapolis Colts were actually sitting at 3, and they traded down to 6 because the Jets were going up to get Sam Darnold, and the Colts ended up getting a boatload in return. They got this pick when they moved down to 6. They also got early in the second round, and then they got another pick in the second round, which they took Braden Smith. So with their pick in the top of the second round, they took Darius Leonard, Shaquille Leonard. Then they took Braden Smith. Those are the 3 picks that Chris Ballard had in a row. Well, it's not going to be Quentin Nelson because he is going to Denver Broncos. So, Eric Crocker, the Indianapolis Colts are now on the clock. What say you, GM Crocker?
I say now they take Darius Leonard in the first round. I mean, this is a guy that has been like one of the heart and souls of that defense. He's been one of the best linebackers in the NFL, if not the best linebacker in the NFL. There was another direction that I wanted to go with here, but I'm going to hold off on that guy. I thought he fit the just kind of the Colts mold and the brand of football that they play, but we know Darius Leonard fits that. Or excuse me, Shaquille Leonard. Sorry,
Shaquille Leonard. Yeah,
Shaq.
He'll go with either apparently, but yeah. You know, it's funny being in Indianapolis and being at games in Indianapolis, and you guys have been to games all throughout. So when Ryan, you go to a Chiefs game, you see 15 jerseys, you see 87 jerseys. Eric, you go out to San Francisco. I mean, you see all kinds of jerseys out there. When you go to Indianapolis, you know the 2 jerseys you see, a 53 and a 56. It's sort of odd because you don't see now. You do see a number of 12s because people still want Andrew Luck. But people took to that 2018 class, and you see 53 and 56 in the stands, which is very odd. And 2 of those Colts have gone in back-to-back picks, with Quentin Nelson going to the Broncos and Shaquille Leonard going to the Colts. So thus far in redrafting 2018, Cleveland took Josh Allen. New York Giants took Nick Chubb. The New York Jets selected Lamar Jackson. The Cleveland Browns then finished up with Jair Alexander. Denver Broncos took Quentin Nelson, and the Indianapolis Colts selected Shaquille Leonard. When we come back, that means Eric will be picking for the Buffalo Bills to start. They drafted Josh Allen. Who will they draft in a redrafted 2018? We'll find out in just a little bit. But I want to talk to you about LinkedIn Jobs. New businesses, small businesses, whatever size business, looking for people to hire, right? You're looking for the best people. You want to find them quickly, and you want to get them working for you to be productive immediately. Well, LinkedIn Jobs is the right place for you. Add your job on LinkedIn Jobs. Let people know that you're hiring. You add that purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile, and you just spread the word that you're hiring. You got all these different tools like screening questions that make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can prioritize what you want. LinkedIn Jobs is why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs number 1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. What other competitors? There aren't any. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. We obviously thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today. For your second listen today, check out Locked On Sports Day. From the games that matter the most to the biggest stories in sports, go beyond the scoreboard and behind the scenes with local experts and insights only Locked On can provide. Locked On Sports Today, available on this app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcast. We're redrafted 2018. We've gone through 6 picks. It's now snake back to Eric to kick off for us it'd be round 3, but it's pick number 7 in the Buffalo Bills. Eric, floor is yours.
The Buffalo Bills aren't going to get Josh Allen in this draft, but what they are going to get is someone that they're missing, right? They're missing this position. They've been trying to get it. You hear them in running back talks with a bunch of teams right now, trying to trade for this guy, that guy. They drafted young Cook out of Georgia. That hasn't helped, but giving them this guy in 2018, we're going with Saquon Barkley, the healthy version of Saquon Barkley, the version that we saw as a rookie, and the version that we're seeing this year. So they get that version of Saquon Barkley, the best version of Saquon Barkley. And no Josh Allen, but he definitely helps that offense a ton.
Maybe Buffalo would have been the team trading for Deshaun Watson. Maybe, but probably not. But they've got Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley. I was going to envision Saquon Barkley in red, white, and blue, and I'm like, well, he's already in red, white, and blue. But, man, in Buffalo with that squad, he would be something amazing. All right, Ryan, the Chicago Bears are on the clock. Now, they took Roquan Smith, subsequently traded Roquan Smith. Now, they got 18, 19, 20, 21. They got 4.5 good years. I wish they could have traded him before week 3. I wish they could have done that. So we didn't have to see Roquan Smith because he destroyed us. What are the Chicago Bears going to do, GM Tracy?
I think it comes down to 2 things. And when you look at where they are now versus where they needed to get to, there's 2 guys here that I think could have made a difference, and maybe the former regimes are still there, and Ryan Poles isn't running this organization right now trying to trade away assets so he can basically reboot the franchise. Yep. It comes down to 2 guys for me, and one is suspended currently and not eligible. So I got to knock him down just a ton, just a smidge, because I think Calvin really could really help this offense had he been available. But in the end, you got to go back to your roots. And in Chicago, you got to play defense. You got to rush the passer. You put Bradley Chubb there from the beginning. Ooh. I think this defense has held together better, and they are probably in a better position today than if that scenario had gone on than what they actually did. So I'll give them Bradley Chubb.
I like it, man. Chubb, and then they acquired Robert Quinn. That could have been kind of nasty. All right, pick number 9 is the San Francisco 49ers, and that's me. And I feel a lot of pressure here because that's my man Eric Crocker's team. So if I pick the wrong guy, he can blast me here.
I'll believe.
So yeah, I know. So I thought about kind of maybe following what Eric did earlier with the Indianapolis Colts, and that was drafting a guy that they drafted later, but getting him right here because obviously we keep going. He'd be gone by the time you got to the 3rd round. And I think that's what I'm going to end up doing. And I'm going to do it for this reason. And Eric, you can back me up on this or not, but watching Fred Warner from the sideline was not fun while my team is getting beat, but it was really impressive to watch how he was in total command of that defense, his ability to run sideline to sideline, cover anybody, make plays that he made in that game. I felt like I was watching the best linebacker in the league and watching Fred Warner. So I'm going to do right here at the 49ers. I'm just going to go with the slam dunk. I know this guy's going to fit in San Francisco because, well, he's been in San Francisco. But I know if I go further in the draft, I'm not going to get him for the Niners. So I'm drafting Fred Warner. Eric, your thoughts?
Love it. All-pro linebacker. And, I mean, he's the heartbeat, sole leader of the San Francisco 49ers defense. He's flying around, literally flying around. There was this play against the L.A. Rams where Hufanga slid down. He kind of missed the tackle. And to make the tackle, Fred Warner went airborne and was parallel in the air. There's a picture of it. It's amazing. Parallel in the air and just decleats the ball carrier from the Rams. And you don't get that type of effort from everybody, but you definitely get it from Fred Warner on every single play.
Yeah, I absolutely love that guy.
All-pro Fred. That's his nickname.
I mean, it's one of those things where you guys do that. You watch a guy on the other team, and you're like, yo, this guy's. I wish this guy played for us. It's exactly what I think that we're missing in Houston, having a guy with that sort of alpha behavior. And speaking of alphas, so when I went through and I did my board, number 10 is now the Arizona Cardinals. So when I went through and I did my board, if you remember, the Cardinals took Josh Rosen. I have Bradley Chubb here. This is where I had Bradley Chubb going. And obviously Bradley Chubb went a couple picks ago to the Chicago Bears. And I started thinking about alphas. When I started thinking about Fred Warner, talking about Fred Warner, I thought this might not be the absolute perfect fit for the Cardinals. But I kind of feel like the Cardinals need a player of this quality to go with Budda Baker. And I loved him in this draft. I worried about his health. And his health has been an issue in the NFL. But when he's been on the field, as he has the last year and some change this year, he is that guy. For the Arizona Cardinals, I'm going to draft Derwin James out of Florida State. I'm going to pair him with Budda Baker. I'm going to have Isaiah Simmons. And I got 3 of the better athletes right there to try and handle that business. And I just feel like there's a lot I can do with Derwin James. I really wanted that edge rusher. I don't know that I love the edge rushers beyond Bradley Chubb at this point. So I'm going to take, to me, the best player available that'll fit that team. And I can't wait to see how Hard Knocks goes. I have watched this on my DVR. But I'm going to take Derwin James for the Arizona Cardinals at pick number 10. That gives us to pick number 11. And the Miami Dolphins, Ryan Tracy, you are on the clock.
They would be very upset because that's what they were about to do, Mr. John Harris.
Yes.
So in shifting gears, you got to look at what they needed at the time, and it would have obviously fit there. What else could have helped them maybe forestall the lows that they got to? Maybe it was taking a chance on a quarterback earlier and not waiting around for Tua. Maybe they did pull the trigger. I would be interested to see what a brash guy in South Beach can do. How would he would have developed, especially the progression of the coaching staffs there in Miami. I don't know that it would have turned out any better. But let's put Baker Mayfield there and see what happens and take his show to South Beach.
And that brings up this. And Eric, I want to ask you this before we get to your pick. And Ron, I think, pointed it out. How important does the staff fit become for a player? Because I know people hear Baker Mayfield, they're like, he's a bum. He's a bust. Look at him. But what if Baker Mayfield did end up having the right fit of coaches? What were your thoughts on Baker Mayfield going into the 2018 draft, if we can all remember back that far? I don't know. I can't remember what I had for lunch, so I don't know if we can remember back 4 years. What were your thoughts, Eric, about Baker Mayfield coming into the draft?
I liked his moxie, and I thought he had just enough mobility, and I thought he had a really good arm that could make all the throws. He was a guy who was kind of this underdog. He walked on at multiple places, went on and really carved out a name for himself at Oklahoma after the transfer. So he was a guy who I liked. I thought number 1 overall was a little crazy because you got to remember at the start of the draft process, he was considered a day 2 guy.
Yep.
And really closer to late day 2, and then started climbing up. You're hearing whispers about him potentially being, not just a first round pick, but first overall. And it was a little wild. And he went to the Senior Bowl, and I thought he did well before he left early. But it still was slightly shocking when he was taking number 1 overall. Now, you look back on it, and hindsight's 2020. I actually thought that it would be the kid from USC.
Sam Darnold.
Sam Darnold. I thought it would be Sam Darnold. So, I mean, I probably would have been wrong too, know? Or maybe that would have been a better situation for him. But overall, I do think that there was some good that came from Baker Mayfield. There was a guy that kind of turned that organization around a little bit, led them to the playoffs. They hadn't had a playoff win in how many years? And they actually won a playoff game with him. I think he brought life to the Cleveland Browns, a team that had been really down and in the dumps for a long time. So it ended on a sour note, but I do think there were some highs there for a little bit. Or I don't want to say highs, but much better moments than I think what people remember.
Yeah, I mean, that 2020 season, people forget he took him to the AFC divisional round, and he gave him an opportunity to beat Kansas City before Chad Henne worked his magic in that playoff game. All right, Eric, we've got to pick number 12. It's now the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and the Bucs drafted Vita Vea, who has had a really good career, I think, with the Buccaneers. He got a second contract. He is a large athletic human being, but Eric Crocker, is that the pick for you, or is it somebody different at number 12?
There are a couple of different ways, we can go with this, but I think a team that originally drafted him and he's had the success, I think you stay with that. We've done that a couple other times with Shaquille Leonard. Fred Warner. And I think with Vita Vea, you did the same thing. A guy who's been a stalwart in the middle of that defense, and they lean on that defense to really provide the spark. And when the defense is down, you can tell something's not right. But when it's good, he's clicking. He has other guys out there. He's eating up double teams. He's creating those run lanes for those linebackers that run sideline to sideline and fill gaps. So I think you stay with Vita Vea.
Yeah, absolutely. That's when I was working mine. That's who I came up with, Vita Vea. I felt like that was a good one to stick with that pick at number 12. 13, 14, 15 coming up. Eric will lead us off. It's the Commanders, Saints, and then we finish with the Raiders. Now, we're going to make sure the Raiders get this pick right because the 2019 picks have not been good. But maybe we'll get it right in 2018. We'll do that next. But I want to keep you safe. We all do. That is the goal of the three of us, to keep all of you out there safe, because that keeps you listening, it keeps you happy, it keeps you here with us on Locked On NFL Draft. Then you've got to get with Simply Safe, because right now, Simply Safe listeners, or Simply Safe will give Locked On NFL Draft listeners the number one rated Simply Safe home security system for 50% off. 50% off. It's their biggest offer of the year, and you won't want to miss it. It's essentially insurance for your house in some way, all your belongings and all that. You go out of town, Simply Safe is there for you. 24/7 monitoring agents, and they know when threats are real and when it's the cat next door. And they will contact you only if it's a real threat. It's the best home security system of 2022 as voted by U.S. News and World Report, a third year in a row. They're doing a Chicago Bulls thing. They're doing a three-peat of the best home security system of 2022. You do not want to buy insurance. Nobody does. But that's essentially what you're getting with Simply Safe. In an emergency, 24/7 professional monitoring agents use Fast Protect technology exclusively from Simply Safe to capture critical evidence and verify the threat is real so you can get priority police response. Don't miss your chance to save big on the only security system I recommend and we recommend. Get 50% off any new Simply Safe system at simplysafe.com/LockedOnNFL. This is their biggest discount of the year, so do not wait. That's simplysafe.com/LockedOnNFL. There's no safe like Simply Safe. All right, we got 3 picks left in our redraft of 2018, and we get to the Washington Commanders, and it's Eric up on the clock for them. They took Deron Payne. He's had a good career for the Commanders. See him in a couple of weeks. I don't know if he's the absolute slam dunk pick here. Eric, you are the GM for the Commanders. Where do you want to go with this 13th pick?
This is a guy who really could have went much higher in this draft. And I would have taken him much higher. I loved him. I actually thought he was going to be the best defensive player out of this class. Leadership, ball skills, playmaking skills, coming from a great program in college. But Minkah Fitzpatrick, I mean, he was my favorite player in this entire draft. And it's weird and wild how it did not work out in South Florida with the Miami Dolphins. But the Commanders, they come up and reap the benefits of him now. So we see with the Pittsburgh Steelers, he turned into an all-pro safety. He always had that type of ability. If the Dolphins didn't move him around and, okay, play corner, okay, play nickel, okay, play safety. I know he has that type of versatility, but he is a safety first that can do some of those things. And I think the Pittsburgh Steelers are definitely happy that they give up a first-round pick. We get Minkah and what he's done, what he's meant, the playmaking ability he has. He already has a pick 6 this year. He has 16 interceptions in his career. We're going with Minkah Fitzpatrick to command the back end for the Commanders.
So I heard this rumor about a year and a half ago. And I have heard it from 2 different people in the city of Houston. But everybody remembers the Laramie Tunsil trade because the Texans gave up a lot in the Laramie Tunsil trade. They gave up 2 1s, a 2. And they got Laramie, and they also got Kenny Stills back. But the Texans actually wanted Laramie Tunsil and Minkah Fitzpatrick. And the Dolphins said no. And I've always thought about that because I'm with you, Eric. I thought Minkah was going to be an absolute dude. And I really wanted to – had I known that at the time, I would have just – throw in another one. It don't matter. Get Minkah. Bring him here too, because he would have been and solidified our back end as well as Laramie did on the offensive line. But yeah, that was a rumor I had heard that Minkah was discussed in that trade. I don't know how long the Dolphins discussed it, but the Texans really wanted him. And Well, we all can see why. But the Commanders get him at pick number 13, courtesy of Eric Crocker. Ryan, it's the New Orleans Saints at pick number 14. Now, they traded up in 2018, giving up their first rounder in 2019 to get up to pick number 14. And they ended up taking UTSA's long defensive end project, Marcus Davenport. Is that the direction you go, or do you go a different direction, Ryan Tracy?
Oh, we're U-turning that thing. We'll stay on the defensive side of the ball, okay. But I too had Micah Fitzpatrick at the top of my safety list. But this guy actually was higher than I expected him to be, and his career has panned out even a lot better than I expected down the stretch. And all the things Derek said in his last comment about the Commanders, can be applied to the Saints as well. If you put a commander at the back of your defense to kind of oversee everything, they had other talent that they brought in secondary. But I think you put Jesse Bates on that defense, they're still kind of purring along. And I think they supported Drew Brees a little bit better through the climax of his career. And maybe that just saved him, got him a few more wins, and got him a step closer to championship.
Interesting. All right, the Oakland Raiders are up. Oops, excuse me. The artist formerly known as the Oakland Raiders. In 2018, they were in Oakland. And even though I love Las Vegas, it's still weird saying Las Vegas Raiders. So it's the Las Vegas Raiders, formerly the Oakland Raiders. They took Colton Miller, and I thought long and hard whether Colton Miller should end up being the selection here, because he's actually turned himself into a pretty decent left tackle. I mean, he's not Bakhtiari in his prime. He's not Tyron Smith in his prime, any of those players, but he's been a pretty good player. And seeing him up close, I mean, he's a unit. But I thought about a Raider, what that means, and what the Raiders, I think, are missing. And this is not to take away from Denzel Perryman, and I actually talked with Divine Diablo after the game, and I think those two have been decent players at linebacker. They're not Roquan Smith. So I'm taking Roquan, and I'm sending him out to Oakland. He'll eventually get to Las Vegas, and he is going to be the focal point for the Raiders defense. I am putting Roquan Smith in Las Vegas, and that finishes our 2018 redraft. All right, are there any names that we didn't get in the top 15 that you guys were thinking about that you would have put in, maybe some pick that I made or Eric made or Ryan made that we were thinking about? I think all 15 of mine got in that I was thinking about, except for Colton Miller. I had Colton Miller going to the Colts at number 6, which would have been kind of high, but I had him going at 6 to the Colts because they need a left tackle. I mean, when Costanzo retired, they've been looking for a left tackle, and it's been an absolute problem. Are there any other players that you guys had down or going to a spot that was a little different than where he ended up?
I don't think so. I mean, I think when you look at this list right here, this is really good. I mean, aside from maybe the 49ers taking possibly Micah Fitzpatrick there just because, just the back end playmaking skills. But,
yep.
I mean, you plug in Fred Warner there, and it's like, all right, yeah, that works too for sure.
Yeah.
I did list some different names on here where, depending on how long we went, if we went a few more picks, I had some guys ready to go. But DJ Moore, that's a guy who has been a really good receiver throughout his career. And it's unfortunate he's had this up and down quarterback situation, but playmaker, and I think he's kind of being underutilized right now. Yeah. All right. Carlton Davis, cornerback for Tampa Bay. Yeah. He's been really good for them. Orlando Brown, Mark Andrews. Mark Andrews might be the best tight end in the league, depending on who you talk to. So there are definitely some other guys like Dallas Goedert, Justin Reed, Orlando Brown. So a lot of talent when you start to do a redraft and figure out how to plug different guys in different places.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an interesting thought exercise, if you will, to think about, well, how would a guy have fit here? How would a guy have fit there? That's why I like to go back and do it. Not because it points out in the air. First of all, it's just fun. It's fun to kind of think back as, who was available, what was there, and what players were there. Ryan, was there anybody else that you were considering or you were looking at that you thought, man, I think this guy would have maybe gone in the top 15 if you'd done it again?
Yeah, honestly, and to break into the top 15, the only other guy that I considered, and I considered him twice in this exercise, so that tells you like what kind of potential he might have had that maybe he hasn't reached, and that is Denzel Ward. So, yeah. He just kept slipping for me. It became about fit. But I think he's had a good start. No offense to any Cleveland Browns fan, but you put him on a different roster with a staff that is more apt to develop his specific talents. I think maybe he's farther down the road towards, Pro Bowl or All Pro today than he would have been.
Okay, so Eric, I'll give you this. When I got to the 49ers, I can't really show you on my piece of paper, but I actually had Denzel Ward written down. How would that have fit in San Francisco?
So 2018, I believe that was it would have been a little tough because that's the offseason that they signed Richard Sherman. He was coming off of an Achilles injury.
Right.
But they had him. They did really like Ahkello Witherspoon that they got the year before, and he finished the year really strong for his rookie year. So I think they potentially thought, okay, we got Ahkello Witherspoon, 6'3", 200-pound cornerback that can run. We got Richard Sherman. I think they liked those guys. They also had a guy by the name of, I think in that offseason, they undrafted. But again, this is after the draft. Sure. They ended up getting Emmanuel Mosley.
Yes.
Who, he's been good for the 49ers. So they ended up with a solid cornerback situation. I think even Verrett? No, next year. Verrett might have been the next year.
I think Verrett was earlier.
But it was solid. But definitely, I mean, come on, man. You can't go wrong. You plug in Denzel Ward there. He was actually my CB1 in that class. I think he's done extremely well for himself. And couldn't go wrong there. Couldn't go wrong with Denzel Ward.
Let's see. You're right. He got to the 49ers in 2019. Jason Verrett. Man, if Jason Verrett would have stayed healthy, he would have been a fun one. He was one of my favorite players to watch at TCU and study. I thought that guy was going to come into the league, and that was about when he was coming into the league when slot corners started really becoming something. We were talking about them a little bit more, and he was going to be a great one. Great one. He just could never stay healthy. But we did. We made it healthy all the way through the 15 picks of the redraft. Real quick, here we go. Number 1 overall, Cleveland took Josh Allen. New York Giants took Nick Chubb. New York Jets then took Lamar Jackson. Cleveland Browns selected Jair Alexander. Denver Broncos went with Quentin Nelson. Indianapolis Colts went with Shaquille Leonard. Buffalo Bills went with Saquon Barkley. Chicago Bears went with Bradley Chubb. San Francisco 49ers went with Fred Warner. Arizona Cardinals took Derwin James. The Miami Dolphins selected Baker Mayfield. Tampa Bay stuck with their original pick, Vita Vea. The Commanders took Minkah Fitzpatrick. The Saints, Jesse Bates. And the Raiders, Roquan Smith. Gentlemen, that was a blast. Excellent job, as always, with our Friday night draft. You guys out there enjoy college football, enjoy the NFL this weekend, and we'll be back next week to break it all down right here on Locked On NFL Draft. And we thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen. For your next listen, check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast. The biggest stories of the day, plus instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day. Available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get podcasts. For Eric and Ryan, I'm John. We'll see you next week, everybody. And as always, let's go.
Let's go.